this is going to be an introduction to the Braille literacy course that I'm putting together. I've got a couple lessons already planned. I just need to actually teach them. But before I do that, I need to give you guys an idea of what's going on and all the other stuff. Um, so first I want to go through the boring stuff that nobody wants to hear, but it's really, really important. Kind of like your first day of school type thing. Teacher goes through the syllabus and all that other stuff. Um, but so that's what I'm looking at. So first, the purpose of the class um is to teach blind people how to read music. Um, and everything that I put up on the board is going to be spoken. And by blind, I do include like visually impaired. It's just easier to say blind versus visually impaired and blind. Um, so yeah. um, so it's, to teach blind people music, um, using Braille. And so this is one part of the why I'm doing this. The second part is to teach myself how to read music in Braille. Um, they say that if you can teach material, then you know it really well. Teaching forces you to actually think about how to explain things, and to make sure that other people understand it as well as yourself. So that's primarily the main purpose. Um, obviously, if anybody wants to like learn it, they can. I mean, it's not like against the law. No, you can't learn Braille music unless you're blind. um, no, definitely like sighted people, if they want to learn this stuff, by all means, grab a blindfold and have fun. Um, obviously, I'm not aiming to be the top YouTuber on YouTube. So this is just something something, something fun for me to do, something I've got a passion about, and I've been putting it off for a while. It's like, well, what the heck? So yeah, now I'm doing it. With utterly no like editing or anything, like no YouTube training other than what few things I've seen on YouTube, but like yeah. So this is a first for me. And there are other like blind people on YouTube. So that's kind of cool. Thank you to you guys for giving me that encouragement. Um Secondly, we're going to cover we've covered the purpose. Now we're going to cover basically who the class or who this is aimed at. Obviously we've got blind people, and like they could be like children or adult. It don't matter. I can't spell child. Um so it it honestly, it really don't matter. Literacy is not an age thing. It's basically like um it's just like a brain thing. Either you know it or you don't know it. And literacy doesn't really have to depend on, oh, well, you're 30 years old and you still can't read. That's really horrible. Um, so, it is what it is. So learning a new skill, just think of this as learning a new skill. Um, so then, teachers can learn from this course, uh, and teachers being like TVIs, which are teachers for visually impaired, and also music teachers, whether if they're uh, in a public school or if they're private, they're teaching lessons from their house. By all means, oops, private. I don't know what I just wrote. Provide. I want to go private. Oh my gosh. um yeah. So teachers can learn, um and this would kind of be like a nice like introductory thing to kind of see how this would actually work. Um but let me see here. I'm trying to think who else would be interested. Oh, like parents. Well, I'm going to say this as others if I can get my eraser to work. So this would be others, and by others I mean like parents or um sighted people who are just interested. I'll say the curious. Um so this could, like, hey, this is kind of fun. Even if you're not learning it to actually learn it, you could learn it just for something to do, something different to do. Um so those are kind of who this is like aimed at. I'll put down sighted people underneath the curious. Um so yeah. So next we're gonna talk about the the materials that are gonna be used. I'm all snugged in my bed right now. And it's like just about 7 o'clock in the morning. um so that's why you might hear some squeaky. So now we're gonna move on to materials. Um and these are items that you're going to need. Um so first you're gonna need heavy paper, and this can be cardstock or braille paper, anything that is heavier than your traditional writing paper. Um, Next, you're going to need what's called a slate and a stylus. And sighted people, I'll show you what that looks like. Slate and stylus. Um, Most blind and visually impaired people should already have at least one of these, slate and stylus. Um, but if you don't, like, I know if you're like in America, you can get them at the gosh, what is it? The federal I was gonna say the Federal Bureau of the Blind. That's not right. It's like the National Federation of the Blind. That's what it is. Um they do have a program where you can get a free slate and stylus from them. If you're elsewhere, England, other countries like that, they might have something similar to that in your country. I don't know. You'd have to look into what your national blindness advocacy thing is, and then look into it. But for sighted people, if you don't know what a slate and stylus is, I will show you quick. Okay, so I'm on Google and I just typed in slate and stylus. Um, the image section has a lot of different styles and shapes and sizes. The one most recommended would be something like this, um, which would be about this size. I think it has about 28 cells in it. It has 4 lines on it. And here is an example of how it's actually written upon. Um, what happens if you put the paper between the two halves of the frame and you close it, and then you write with the stylus poking in your little holes. You write in on the back side of the paper, and that's how that works. Um, let's see. They do have some for like here like index cards. I would not recommend getting this because it's not gonna you're not going to be able to fit a lot of information on there unless you really want to use a lot of index cards. um, Amazon has them. You can get them at there's a APH store, which is the American Printing House for the Blind. Um, there's Maxi Aids. You can find them there. Um, I'm trying to think of anything else. Like I said, if you legitimately are nearsighted or blind, you can get them through the National Federation of the Blind in America, um, or something similar to that in your country that might have a program similar to that. Um, but yeah, that's basically what the Slate Stylus is and kind of how it would work. Next, we're going to talk about the next item, which is the next item is going to be a Braille Eraser. If you write in Braille, just like you write in with a pen or a pencil or even word processor, you will make a mistake because we are all human and we do err. Um, and I cannot spell. I can't spell eraser. Um, I think it's ER. But yeah. So a Braille eraser, and I'll show you quickly what that is. Okay, so I just typed in Braille eraser into Google, and here are a couple examples of what they look like. This one is kind of neat. It looks like a pencil. If you see at the edge, there's a little point, and then it comes back as like a shaft or the back end of a pencil eraser area. The point is what you do your erasing with single dots. You could probably flatten 1-2 dots with that. Um, and the back end would be if you have to erase a whole word or a whole cell, things like that. If you need to erase a lot, you can use the back end for that. But they do come in different shapes and sizes. I call this one the pencil. I call this one the finger. I don't know why. And this one I kind of call like the beer bottle or the rum bottle or some fat bottle because it looks like a fat bottle. Um, it's fat on the bottom for the most of the item, and then it's got a narrow, small tip at the top, which has your erasing point. Whereas the kind of liken to the finger, it's got a fat bottom and a very, very skinny, long shaft to erase with. Most of these, they could be wood or plastic. Most of, like, with your slates, they could be plastic. I think for the most part they're made of plastic, but you can find like metal ones or aluminum. But these ones for these erasers are mostly made of plastic or wood. The one that looks like a pencil is definitely plastic, so heads up on that. So again, you can buy them at Amazon, the APH store. Um, oh gosh, the Maxi Aids, places like that. So that is how you erase Braille with a Braille, or that's what you use to erase Braille with a Braille eraser. The next item on our items list. The next item on our items list is going to be a blindfold. This would be if you are sighted or if you have residual vision. um, this is used to enhance oral, like hearing, and tactile sense of sensory. So that's what this is for. And so if you're sighted and you've never had a blindfold on or whatever, um, you could be really surprised at how well you hear, how well your hearing is when you do remove sight. Um, so a sleep mask could work, a scarf, or like a real legit blindfold. You can find them on Amazon easily. Um, I'm sure there's a science to like get like the most light like taken out of your eyes. That doesn't sound right. But like with how it's a blindfold without being uncomfortable but yet still utilizing the darkness. Usually what I do is I just use a scarf and close my eyes. I find it very natural to close my eyes. I don't know why, but yeah. But a blindfold will help with tactileness and with hearing. And music in general is mostly a hearing art, so it will kind of expound on that as well. Um, the last thing um is a metronome, and this metronome, these you can get on um online, like digitally, or else you could do like a real analog one. Let me show you what I found on Google. Okay, so I'm on Google. I just typed in metronome, and I kid you not, they have a metronome right here on Google. Here we have one. Let's see. Let's have it at 80. So technically you don't even need to go and buy anything. Um this one goes down to 40, and the highest it goes is 218. And it's kind of cool because the color actually changes as you move lower in tempo. It's green, and then it goes blue and yellow and orange, red, and then like more red, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, this is a tool that can be utilized. Um, you could also get, like, if you really want to, you could get like one of these um obelisk type ones. And basically with these you just there's a rod, and you put there's a little bit here, and it actually has a little clip type thing that runs up and down on the rod. The rod has little grooves in it, and the grooves are lined up precisely with the scale on the product, on the base itself. And so you line up the top part of the weight to the number on the scale, and it will determine your beats per minute. Um, so that's another option. There's also digital ones, like this one. You just push some buttons and you get your time. This one looks like a dial. You just like you spin the dial, and it has a like a dot or something, and you just spin it to the number you want. So that's how that works. But definitely, I kind of thought it was cool that Google has a metronome right on there for you. So check that out, and that's one less thing for you to buy. Okay, so now that we've talked about items to be covered, we are quickly going to run through the methods of how we're going to learn music in Braille. So seeming that this is basically for like blind people, we're going to do listening. So you'll basically be listening to things before you actually learn to read it. This goes back to the natural process of learning language. So listening, and then recitation, which is when you learn to speak the language. If I can figure out how to spell it, recitation. Um, so the recitation is useful for actually learning information that you want to retain in your long-term memory. The science behind it is, I'm gonna say, I don't know. I find recitation really cool because you learn something and you recite the information, and before you like forget it, you recite it again. And as you're reciting over a number of weeks, your recall is actually going to be faster. And this is good because you're building neurons. And the recitation, it works really well for foundational information. Like if you're in mathematics, reciting multiplication tables, addition tables, things like that, because that is the foundation of mathematics. If you're doing music, recitation of like spelling chords or spelling key signatures and things like that. Braille, recitation of the number spelling of certain contractions that you're learning. Recitation is really, really good for learning foundational material that you're going to be building on. Whereas like with regular learning where they don't have recitation, you forget a lot of information and it doesn't really do you any good after the exam or quiz is done. You just kind of forget it because you never really learned it. But with recitation, you are reciting with the purpose of learning, not with the rote memory, but with the intention of actually recovering that information. And the more you recover it, the stronger those neural pathways will be in your brain, and you won't have to struggle so much to recall it. So then that's recitation. Next we have writing, and this includes written. I just put down written stuff. And this includes like let me put a bullet point there. Note taking. Like I said, like this first thing, you really don't need to take notes, but if you want to, knock your socks off. It involves like preparation work. And this includes this preparation work is kind of like I will post a video and I will be spelling out dot numbers of notes, pitches, and rhythms and things that we are going to be actually using for that next lesson. Because not everybody has a Braille printer or a Braille embosser, but a lot of people can afford a Slate Stylus. This is probably going to be the best way. And also, it will give you guys an opportunity to actually practice with writing. And you can write the material as many times as you want. You just need to have one good copy for that lesson because you will be reading from that information. And this also includes things for like homework and things like that. So that is what prep work is. Then there's, I would call it copy work, which is when you write information several times on a page. And this, like doing copy work and recitation, can work really, really well together. For instance, if you're learning what the symbol is to raise a note a half step, it's called a sharp. You could do copy work. You could put down, You could put down the word sharp, and then you could, as you're writing out the dots for that symbol, you could be saying sharp 146, sharp 146. Um, and that way you're knocking out two birds with one stone. And the fact that you're writing with a slate, you're actually learning the pattern in the cell, not necessarily pressing keys on a braille note or a brailler and just memorizing finger motions. So that is writing. I'm sure there's other stuff, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Oh, homework assignments. Yeah. Um, that would be another writing segment here. Assignments, written work at the end of lessons, doing that and then being able to perform it well. And then lastly, there's a section. Let me see here. Singing. So this would be in music when you go to college and university. There's a course, they call it ear training and sight singing. That is what this is going to entail. And so the sight singing aspect is when you will get, you will be writing out music. Whoops, I need an S in there. No, sight, sing. We don't want that. I can't write singing. Okay, sight singing. So the musical aspect, the singing portion is when you write out a line of music, and again, this will kind of serve as, kind of like copy work or whatnot, but you're writing out, basically you're writing out the music that you're going to be practicing to sing. Learning to read Braille, if you don't have music to practice on, then you really can't learn to read. In the same with literacy, if you don't have books to read, things that are interesting to you, you're not going to really read all that much. So that is where this comes into place. And then ear training, there are exercises that we're going to do with the first part of the lesson, and those are going to be kind of given also as like homework. Hey, continue to do these at least once a day or something like that, because it will help you develop your ear, your hearing, and your listening, or not your listening. Well, yeah, you're listening too, but you're reading as you're reading music. So that is that. Also, there's a section under writing I forgot to write in here. They call it dictation. And this is basically when I give you a line of music, or I will play a line of music, and you write it out in Braille notation. It could be rhythm or pitch or both. And this is another thing that college and university students do. And depending on what your instrument is, if you're a keyboardist or you sing inner parts of a choir like tenor or alto, you're going to inner inner voices better than you would like melodies. But if you play violin or flute, your sense of melody is going to be stronger than your sense of harmony. And that's something I noticed when I was in university, was harmonic progressions and writing things in harmony went a lot easier than writing out simple, writing out melody stuff because I didn't have that context of what the harmony was. If it's just a melody, I had a heck of a time writing it out. But this is something that we build up to gradually and slowly and in steps. So I do have a couple of the lessons planned out. So let me show you briefly what that is real quick before we close the video. Okay, so here we have the back end of everything. Each I have a page here, and it has a whole bunch of lesson snippets, outline, goals, and things like that. So the first lesson, I should say that each lesson is going to be split up into smaller bits so that we are not going to be looking at everything all at once and just being really, really confused. But we're going to take everything nice and slowly. And it's going to be in depth on all of these different pitches and things. So first we're going to learn the pitches do, re, and mi. And this stuff is just to get acquainted with the actual pitches. We're just learning the foundational steps. And each lesson, or pretty much mostly each lesson, we will add a pitch or we will combine pitches. Like lesson 1.3, we have do, re, mi, sol. And then the next lesson will add do, mi, fa, sol. So there are some pitches where there are some lessons where not all the pitches are represented, and that's because of just how the book was put together. So then we have do, re, mi, fa, sol with simple diatonic steps, and then we have them using skips. So when we get to here, we might touch a little bit on what intervals are, and then we gradually add the last half of the scale before we eventually get to the top of the scale, which is the very top note. And so at this point, we might introduce the octave signs a little bit early, but I still am not sure about that. But there are goals that I'm looking at people achieving, being able to spell the pitches using the dot numbers, being able to recognize pitches by touch. So like if a student were to feel a piece of music, would they be able to identify the pitch? And then, of course, being able to write pitches. And then singing examples, it's not a real big to-do, but if you can sing them or if you want to sing them, that's up to you. But eventually we will get into the singing aspect. But this first several lessons is just primarily to lay the foundation of how music is put together, divided up into sections of different areas of music. So first we're going to look at pitch, then we're going to look at what meters are, time signatures, rhythm, and gradually work out from there. So then the homework for the first lesson would be like, there would be a recitation, there would be items to be written out, there would be speaking stroke singing, that would be like reading exercises and being able to understand what you're reading. And then we'd move on to the next lesson. And then there would be goals. And then lesson 3. And lesson 3 I'm still working on. It has quite a bit more information and it is a bit more on the technical side. But I'm going to try not to dwell on it a whole bunch. But it does cover a lot of information as far as just what it covers. So I'll need to figure out how to break this up. I'm thinking I might break it up. And then we get to my chicken scratch, which I'm still working on. Um, Getting this all typed up because initially I had this all written out. Now I'm trying to get it all written out nicely. So that's why none of this is readable. um, so that's kind of where things are at right now to kind of give an idea. But definitely the first several lessons will cover the pitches. And then after pitches, we're going to talk about what a measure is, what bar lines are, and the different octave signs. And there's going to be, there's the goals and then there's the assignments that go with that. In lesson 3, it covers a lot of information. So that one's going to be a little bit longer. And then lesson 4 is going to cover a little bit on sharps and flats and accidentals. And then once we cover all of that, a little bit into key signatures too. But once we once we get through the first 4 lessons, then we will actually be diving into music, like real music, and be sight singing music using all the stuff that we are building the foundation on. I was gonna say, I do up at the top, I do have a bunch of books that I'm gonna be utilizing from my library that I've purchased and studied from, and all this other stuff. There's also books that are not listed here. I'm thinking I might use some not piano literature, but piano books for working with the octaves, especially with like the 2nd and the 7th octaves, so that you guys get an idea of how to read the octave symbols. Not that you're going to be playing them on piano. If you want to, that can obviously be, easily be done if you want to do that. And again, that will help with your understanding of music theory and everything that goes with it. So with that, the next video I put out will be the introduction to the first 3 pitches, do, re, and mi. So please subscribe and you won't miss any of the videos. And in the meantime, feel free to check out any of the other videos I have posted on any of the playlists or other videos that I've made. So until then, have a good day and we'll talk to you later.